You have fun. Get a good spot. Easy one. Yeah. Be on the end. Make Carol go inside. You be on the end. We're gonna make her escape. He's closest to the mic.
Oh, yeah, because I tend to get off.
Whiny ass people that wants to stay home. I'm afraid I'm gonna get COVID. Give me a break. That's what I say. Yeah. No comments. None. I agree 100%. It's a tough
Hi, both.
How you doing?
How you doing?
I see.
But you did well. I think I did, yeah. Yeah, I did. I was going to say, if I didn't see you today.
Yeah, no, we were a lot late.
Oh, my. I never seen you now.
Oh,
I'm not a sports, I'm not there.
that's the way my dad. Yeah, that's funny. My mom did that.
That's me.
My dad's up till like 30.
Yeah.
And that's me, too. Me and my wife are the same.
Yeah, my husband was to be. Well, but the end
And he goes,
I
walk
work
outside
out.
and it's all. So he just gets that.
I'll catch up with you.
He gets behind him.
Other than that, I'd rather.
Oh, there.
Exactly, yeah. I didn't even look, because I wanted to know that too. Who the candidates, but I didn't know that. Kate's coming.
This right here. You're good.
Good morning, everybody,
Good morning.
and welcome to the annual meeting of the town of Bristol for the year 2023. Bristol was incorporated in 1819. That means that this meeting has been held for the last 204 years annually, and people have gathered for this purpose. We're going to begin, as we usually do, with our Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Barbara Greenwood if she might lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
She just remains standing. We'll have just a brief invocation. We gather again here in the middle of March for our traditional town meeting. It is a great time of year. We have weathered the January cold and the February snows, and now we can see the end of winter approaching.
Hi.
Yes, there is mud season, posted roads, and frost heaves, and the occasional bad weather like the storm we had on Tuesday. But the sun is getting stronger. The average daily temperature is in the 40s now. The days are staying lighter longer. The rivers are opening up, and the maple sap is running. It is a time for optimism. It's a time to look forward. It's a time to think of spring cleaning, of gardens and what seeds to plant, and of outdoor projects. We sense the coming of summer, that wonderful, most enjoyable time of year. Yes, the winter in New Hampshire is hard, but it brings renewal. It makes us appreciate the easier days ahead. Attending town meeting is not always easy, but as we hold our meeting today, let us consider the fact that each of us has a voice and a vote in matters that impact our town and our lives. We may not always agree on decisions that need to be made, but we can agree to air our differences and on how to address them. Working together, being tolerant of each other's points of view, showing respect for each other, and maintaining an orderly process is what makes us a community and binds us together. When we leave town meeting, we look forward to another year and enjoying the high quality of life we enjoy here in the town of Bristol. This is a time of renewal. As we hold our meeting here today, may we be filled with the spirit of optimism. May we share our opinions with gratitude for the opportunity to be heard and to vote. May we treat each other with respect. May we all be guided by our desire to preserve our community and make Bristol an even better place to live. That is what we aspire, hope, and pray for. Thank you. We will begin with introductions, and we'll start with the table to my right with our town clerk.
Raymal Simpson, Town Clerk, Tax Collector.
Christina Goodwin, Town Administrator.
John Hughes, Select Board Chair.
Anita Avery, Select Board Vice Chair.
Good morning, Carol Brown, Select Board.
Don Milbrand, Select Board.
Bob Blanchett, Finance HR Director.
And the table to the left.
Paul Regan, Budget Committee Chair. Charlie Terrio, Budget Committee.
Susan Sedano, Budget Committee.
Rob Glassick, Budget Committee.
Thank you. We also have town council with us today, Attorney Tanguay, to provide us with counsel if in fact that becomes needed. I note that we do have refreshments available in the lobby for everybody. That's the class of 2025. The sophomore class is putting that on. The town meeting, just the preliminaries, the only people who are able to participate in the town meeting typically are people who are registered voters in the town of Bristol. So in order to participate, to either speak or to vote, you need to be a registered voter here in the town. We do make some exceptions to that with regard to town, those people who hold positions in the town. If, for example, the department heads, if they in fact are, if there's a need to answer questions, we call upon them, and generally we accept the fact that they can speak. But other than that, no one should be speaking. Are there people here today who are not residents of the town? If you would, just raise your hand so we know who you are. Okay, thank you. We're going to go through the warrant articles today. The first warrant article, of course, was the election of officers and the vote on land use ordinances. Those took place last Tuesday at the beginning of the town, what is the beginning of the town meeting, which is the election portion of the town meeting. and we've shown up here for the business meeting, but we'll go through each of the articles today, one at a time. We'll read the article, someone will make a motion to support the article, there'll be a second, and then we'll have discussion. It'll be an open discussion. People should feel free to come, comment on each of the articles, ask questions that they might have. We ask everybody, if they would, to come to a microphone as we're taping the session today. It's important that everybody be able to be heard in the room and on the tape, so you need to come to a microphone in order to do that. If you're at the microphone, I certainly will call on you first before you raise your hand in your seat. All questions and comments should be made to the moderator. If you have questions, ask it of the moderator. We will try to find somebody to answer that question for you. We do use parliamentary procedure for the most part, although it's generally moderator's rules, but generally we follow parliamentary procedure and statutory procedure for operating the meeting. Because people come here to the meeting, generally it's my practice not to accept motions to close debate until everybody who came and who wants to speak has had an opportunity to speak. So everybody should be able to have an opportunity to speak at least once if they wish to speak on any article. So I won't accept a motion to close debate until everybody feels that they've had a fair opportunity to be heard. When you do come to the microphone, just ask that you identify yourself so people know who you are, and it would be great if you identified your street or address as well, where you live. If you, some of the amendments, some of the articles today can be amended. If you do have an amendment, we ask that you put that amendment in writing and in advance, so we can address it and make sure that it's correct in our records as well. Any amendment must be seconded. One of the things that point out in terms of parliamentary procedure is you can't speak and then decide at the end of your speech you want to make an amendment. If you want to make an amendment, you make a motion to amend, and then you address your amendment. But we won't accept an amendment if you've already spoken. We won't accept it at the end of when you have spoken. Voting on each article, we'll vote on each article. We'll vote to close debate on the article itself, and then we will vote on the article, and we'll do our very best to do as much voting as we can by voice vote, and move along as quickly as we can. When I can't make a determination between the yeses and the nos, then we'll do a hand count, and if it is specifically requested, there is nothing that requires us to have a ballot vote today. But if there are a sufficient number of people who request it, we will have ballot votes, potentially ballot votes. When we do have a ballot vote, it takes a lot of time, and people should be aware of that. The only thing that I'd ask is, as we always do, and generally that's always the case here at our town meetings, is that you be courteous and respectful of others. When you speak, try to get to the point, be brief. I always say the best speech is one like the Gettysburg Address: short, complete, to the point, effective. No profanity, of course, no disparaging remarks or personal remarks about other people. And finally, my job as moderator is to be fair, to make sure that the meeting is fair and efficient. I do make mistakes. I think you all know that by now. I do make mistakes. If I do make a mistake, you can overrule me, and please don't hesitate to let me know if I do, and because I want to do it right. And the other thing is, if there is a ballot vote, I just want to let you know I will be voting along with everybody else. I will not be voting to break a tie or to create a tie. And that's it. So we will now move on with the warrant. Our first item of business today is Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the Budget Committee's recommended sum of $8,357,652 for general municipal operations. The Select Board recommends $8,423,739. This article does not include appropriations contained in special or individual articles addressed separately, and the majority vote required. And is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion for approving Article 11.
Okay. It's moved by Mr. Regan, and is there a second?
I will second it.
Okay, and seconded. And would you like to address your motion?
Yes. So I'll start by identifying myself. I'm Paul Regan. I live at 10 Blue Tick Drive here in Bristol. Excuse me. A couple of things. First, I want to point out that last year someone pointed out that the number that we're voting on was not really obvious in the documentation. And so we did change the way that the budget is organized this year. And if you look on page 46 of your book, which is page 19 of the budget, you'll see towards the bottom a line that says total general municipal operations, and that number is the number that you're voting on. So I want to take a minute to talk about just kind of the structure of the budget and how we work. So can we move this slide forward just and show, how do I do that?
It's there.
Oh. This is on two slides, and I'm just going to toggle through them. I'm not expecting you to read all the details, but the way that I think of the budget is that there's four major sections. There's the section that's outlined in green there, which is general fund operations. There's a section in red there that's the debt service. If we go to the next slide, there's a section in blue that's the water and sewer department. Those three sections added together are what you're voting on in Article 11. The fourth section is the section in orange. That's the capital spending. That's basically Articles 12 through 20. So what we're talking about is, and it's a little bit confusing, even for those of us on the Budget Committee, because we're required to do what's called gross appropriation. Everything the town spends needs to be in the budget. But the section in blue, which is water and sewer, isn't funded out of your general taxes, out of your property taxes. It's funded out of the user fees for water and sewer. So as that goes up and down, the cost for you for water and sewer should change, but the cost of your property tax bill really shouldn't change. So now, if we can go back to the previous slide, I want to talk about the fact that, and that water and sewer this year is proposed to decrease by, I need to take my glasses off to read, and I need to put them on to see you, so, excuse me. It's reducing actually by 1.6%. But again, that doesn't affect your property taxes. The section in red is debt service, and that is proposed to increase by 86%. Two things. One is the Budget Committee didn't cut any of this. We really can't cut this. This is an obligation that we've made to make payments on bonds that we've taken out, and we can't tell the people who loaned us money that we're not going to pay them back. And the reason that it's going up by 86% compared to last year is because this year we need to start making payments on the new public safety building. So last year you approved the new public safety building. The bonds were sold in 2022. So in 2023 we need to start making payments. The section in green, which is the general fund operations, are the cost of operating the town government other than water and sewer. And this is where the Budget Committee spends most of its time and effort looking at things. We meet with the department heads, and we go over things line by line. The budget that we received from the Select Board proposed a 7.3% increase in this section, and the Budget Committee has made some reductions, and what you're being asked to vote on today will be a 6.3% increase in general fund operations compared to last year. The Budget Committee is obviously interested in being good stewards, and we're trying to minimize spending. So we made specific effort to make reductions in this year. Even with high inflation, we thought that 7.3% was higher than what the average taxpayer was interested in wanting to pay. But a lot of the sections of the budget basically, when we get a bill for liability tax, or we get a bill from the state for retirement contributions, we can't really negotiate those things. So the finance director tells the Budget Committee how much it's going to cost, and we put that in the budget, and we really can't change that. But we did make changes and cut things as best we could. I tend to ramble a little bit, and I want to make sure that I don't take too much of our time, so I'm going to try to, if people have specific questions, I'm happy to answer those, but the last thing I want to say is that if you have concerns about the budget, if you have thoughts about the budget, I want to urge you to get involved. We don't see many people, members of the public, come to our meetings. I have to actually admit, until I joined the Budget Committee, I had never been to a Budget Committee meeting. So I'm guilty of that too. But in past, I've lived in town about 10 years, and I can remember years ago where we had contested elections for the Budget Committee. We had more candidates than we had positions available. This past year, we had this past week, we had 2 positions on the ballot, and we only had 1 person running. So we need more involvement by people of the town. If you're interested, or you don't need any special, you don't need to be a CPA, you don't need to be a budgeting expert. If you're a concerned town member, we urge you to get involved. If you have any questions, see me or any member of the Budget Committee. We'd be happy to share with you kind of how things work, and you can decide if you think that that's somewhere you could help. Thank you.
Questions or comments? Mr. Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Paul Fraser, Willamette Road. Just a point of information, Mr. Chair. I noticed that the Budget Committee is recommending this 5-0 to 1 abstention. Whoever abstained from the vote, do they want to, if they're here today, do they want to explain that possibility or why that happened?
That would be Carol. You want to talk, Carol?
Thank you, Paul. Good morning. So I'm the Select Board representative this year to the Budget Committee. In essence, my charge is to present the Select Board's views on the budget that we sent to the Budget Committee. So a number of times this year, and for those that know me, it seems like I'm always doing something a little bit off the beaten path. It seems that way, but a number of times in the budget process, an item would come through, and there was a very legitimate change presented by, let's say, a department head that came after the Select Board looked at the budget. So as I'm sitting there, and I have a vote, as the Select Board representative, you have a vote. So I'm sitting there and I say, okay, well, I agree. The road department came in and said, we told the Select Board this, but we now are firmly believe that our number was incorrect, and we've modified that, and we all voted on that line item. So out of common sense, you say, the department says this is right, so I would vote yes on that line item. And then as you come down into that entire section, where I voted no on everything else, maybe on that, I had to decide, how do I vote now on the entire package? I said yes on this line item because that made sense, but then later on you said, do you approve of the entire, let's say, road department budget? And I would say, I'm sticking with the Select Board's representation of the rest of the line items. So then I would sometimes vote no, or I would sometimes abstain. So the reason I abstained from the final vote is because I did that a number of times throughout the process. Did that make sense?
That's fair.
All
Thank
right.
you, Brody.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? You ready to vote?
Ned, 1 second.
Yeah.
When you read your thing off there, will you read that again, on your 8 million and something? Will you repeat that again, please?
On the warrant article itself?
On your total there. I heard you say 8,423, and that's 22. Maybe I heard you wrong.
There was a typo. She fixed it. That's the select board number. There was a typo.
So he's right, the text and the number are not the same in the.
In the book, there was a typo.
What's on the screen, Ed, is correct. So, Ned, so
8,422 is the correct number.
For the select board.
Did you say 8,2223 or 22?
8,422,739
That's what
is
you said.
is the correct number.
Right,
For the select.
and that's what you said in the beginning.
Right. That's
Okay,
the,
thank
that's
you.
the select board number.
Yeah, no, I just heard it wrong. And probably, Ned, if you only could be a little bit louder than my TV, I can't really hear you very good.
Okay? I will do my best.
Thank you.
Do you want me to explain? There was a typo.
Okay, go ahead.
I think, we'll let you speak. Thank you.
Just to let you know, there was a typo in the town report. It says 23,000, but the actual number in parentheses is 22,000. So we corrected it on the slide up here, but there was a typo, so.
So was I right?
You were right.
Just to clarify, Mr. Morrison is correct. There was a typo in the book, but just so you all are clear, that number is the select board recommendation that we started with. That's not actually the number you're voting on. The budget committee number is the 8,357,652 number. That's what you're voting on.
Okay? You ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay.
close debate.
Okay. Selectman Legault made a motion to close debate. Is that seconded?
Second.
Seconded by Jody Favorite. Okay. All those in favor of closing debate on Article 11 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. You've closed debate on Article 11, so we'll now be voting on Article 11. Article 11 is unamended, so you will be voting on it just as it appears on the warrant in the exact same manner. And that is to appropriate $8,357,652 for general municipal operations. Everybody understand that?
Yes.
If you vote yea, you'll be voting in favor of that. If you vote nay, you'll be voting against. All those in favor of Article 11 as written signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. Wow.
Thank you.
In all my years, I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Did something just happen to this?
Now that is optimism. Okay. You've adopted the provisions of Article 11. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to establish a contingency fund for the current year for unanticipated expenses that may arise, and further to raise and appropriate $25,000 to put in the fund. This sum to come from unassigned fund balance. Any appropriations left in the fund at the end of the year will lapse to the general fund. A majority vote required. And is someone making that motion? Selectman Avery has moved Article 12, and is it seconded?
So second.
Yes. And I can't see. Joe Caristi seconded that. And would you like to address that?
Yes. Hi, I'm Anita Avery from Hall Road, and in 2022, the contingency was used for the lighting for the library repair. We wouldn't have had that money otherwise. It was used for the garden shed. Much of this money is returned, and it goes into the general fund.
I can't really hear this very good at all.
I'm sorry.
Maybe I'm the only one.
No, I'm sorry. I just have to be closer, I'm sorry.
I can hear you good.
Okay?
I can hear you good.
Good. In 2022, the contingency was used for the lighting repair at the library. They wouldn't have had that money otherwise. Also been used for the community shed. If this money isn't used, it's returned back to the general fund, so I'm hoping you will pass this motion. Thank you.
Questions or comments? Okay. And Mr. Glassett has moved to close debate. Is that seconded?
Second.
Seconded by Bob Huber. And all those in favor of closing debate on Article 12 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. You're now voting on Article 12. You're voting on it as it appears in your warrant. It has not been amended. You will be creating a contingency fund of $25,000 for unanticipated expenses. Everybody understand that? If you vote yea, you'll be voting in favor of that. If you vote nay, against. All those in favor of Article 12 as it appears in the warrant signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. You've adopted the provisions of Article 12. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the Patriotic Recreation and Special Events Expendable Trust Fund established in 2020. And is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move Article 13 as written.
Okay. Moved by Selectman Legue, Article 13, and is there seconded?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Selectman Brown. And would you like to address it?
Good morning. I get the pleasure of doing this one today. We have a notable absent that Les is a little bit under the weather this morning, so was not able to join us. So this is the article that we've done for several years now regarding fireworks. We are in our third year of the current contract. We did have a bit of a stumble earlier in the year where we thought we were not going to be able to do it at the lake based on some changes in the state law, but we've restructured the show and will be able to do it. So I do ask for your support on this article.
Questions, comments? Motion to close debate.
So move.
Paul Fraser moved to close debate. Is that seconded by anyone? Seconded by Jan Barrett. All those in favor of closing debate on Article 13 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. You've closed debate. We'll now be voting on Article 13 to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 for patriotic, recreational, and special events. The article's been unamended and it would, if passed, be as it appears in your warrant. All those in favor of Article 13 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay.
Nay.
You've adopted, the ayes have it, you've adopted the provisions of Article 13. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $379,000 to be added to the following capital reserve funds previously established. Accrued wages capital reserve fund, $35,000. Assessment Reval Capital Reserve Fund, $45,000. Fire Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, $75,000. Highway Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, $120,000. Police Vehicle Capital Reserve Fund, $54,000. And Town Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund, $50,000. And is there a motion?
I move the article, Mr. Moderator.
Moved by Selectman Milbrand and seconded by,
Second.
who was that up there?
Frank Dahl.
Seconded by Frank Dolph. And would you like to address the motion?
Sure.
We try to get as many names in the minutes as we can.
Meeting's going quick, so I'll be brief as well. This is a practice that we've established, and I thank you as being a member of the CIP committee, that this helps balance out the capital expenditures that the town has over the years. The accrued wages is people that, have a number of years when they either leave or retire. You have to pay the unused portion of benefits like vacation, things like that. This way it doesn't have a hit on the budget. There's money there and we're planning for it. The reval, it's the same thing. Every 5 years, we're required to reval the entire town, and it's starting to get expensive. So this way, if you save a little bit every year, when that time comes, you have the money and it's not a spike in your taxes. Fire equipment, I mean, $75,000 doesn't seem like a lot, but when you figure a fire truck lasts for 20, 30 years, but it costs you $500,000 to $1 million, saving a little bit at a time, you end up having that money and not having to pay interest on a loan. Highway equipment the same way. Police, vehicle, and town building maintenance are exactly the same story. Just for your information, the money that you spend here is about 68 cents per thousand on your tax rate. Thank you.
Questions, comments?
Paul Manganello, 1777 Lake Street. I'd like to propose an amendment to Article 14.
Yep. What is your amendment?
I'd like to amend the articles to read, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $184,000 for the following capital reserves. Accrued wages, $35,000. Assessment reval, $45,000. Police vehicle, $54,000. And town building maintenance fund, $50,000.
Okay. And you can bring that down after. Is there a second to the amendment, first of all? Yes, and who's that up there? Richard Metcalf. Okay, was that Ernie?
Yes.
Ernie Richards. Okay, Paul, you want to address your amendment?
Sure. I think I did this once before in 2017, amending the capital reserve. But the work that Don does is phenomenal. And if you were to look in the back page of the book, it's showing you the debt service, it's showing you the interest, it's showing you where they forecast the needs and requirements of a replacement fire engine or a replacement building, but it never occurred. And where I'm looking at this thing is, it's 2030 or 31 is the next fire engine that needs to be replaced. And we're saving for that at the rate of, as Don said, $75,000. Right now, the Fire Equipment Capital Reserve has, if you look on page 65, has $302,000 in it. And we're going to add another 75, and so on and so forth through those years so that we can purchase a $700,000 vehicle in 2031. I'm just kind of looking around here. I'm not sure how many of us are going to still be around in 2031, but you might just want to buy it for your grandchildren. It's a great idea, and I absolutely, for accrued wages, assessment reval, fire equipment, town building maintenance fund. But where I'm struggling with is this town votes for anything when it's needed. We purchased a fire engine on a petition warrant article in 2014. You just spent $4.87 million on a building.
You got that right.
If you don't think we're gonna buy the fire equipment when it's needed and take the hit on taxes, I'd be surprised. It's almost as surprised as how fast that budget went through. And I'll open it up for discussion.
Okay, just to explain the amendment, the current Article 14 would appropriate $379,000. The amendment would change that to $184,000, from 379 to 184,000. And what actually it does is it deletes from the appropriations, the appropriation for the fire equipment capital reserve fund and from the highway equipment capital reserve fund. The 75,000 from the capital fire equipment and the 120,000 from the highway equipment. Everybody understand that? Okay. Selectman Milburn, did you want to speak?
I'd like to speak to the amendment.
Okay.
I'd like to encourage you to vote this amendment down. I believe in saving money as well, and I know that times are tough right now. Where these numbers come from is we've done a cash flow analysis essentially, so that when the time comes that you need these vehicles, you will have the money in the bank. It's pretty much, think of it as the same as your escrow account that you pay for your mortgage. You pay a little bit every month, and at the end of the year, the taxes are due, and the money's there for it. The insurance is due, and the money is there for it. Otherwise, if you would not do that, you'd be trying to come up with thousands of dollars out of your personal income every time a bill like that comes due. So, and it's not that you're, saving up for the next person's fire truck. What you're doing is you're putting away the amount that you're using up of the current fire truck. I know you already paid the money for that fire truck, but if you reverse this around, we're just getting into this. So the next generation will be paying for their portion of using that fire truck.
Okay, other discussion, comments? Hold on, Carol?
Carol Huber from Summer Street in Bristol. This may be a year that we go along with Paul's amendment. We've got to start watching our pennies. I know myself and everybody here whose electric bills have doubled, who my oil bill has more than doubled. We spend almost $5,000 to heat our house this year. I think we have to tighten our belts wherever we can, and I go along with Paul's amendment.
Bill?
Bill Dowie, Galahad Lane. I have a question. We had equipment damaged by fire at the transfer station this year, and I'm presuming it's mostly covered by insurance, and those vehicles have to be replaced. Now, are those vehicles 100% covered by insurance, or will the replacement vehicles we acquire take money out of this account?
Somebody address that?
Thank you, Bill. Good question. We are fully insured, and we do expect to be made whole. We've already gotten, we don't have the answer to the question is we don't know exactly what we're getting back at this point. We have not had the final report from the insurance company. There are some slight repairs needed to a couple of pieces that they've okayed. The big loss, of course, is the truck, which they're doing some, whatever insurance companies do, to be honest with you. But anyways, we do expect to get made whole on what that vehicle was worth. Does that mean purchasing a new one identically set up is not going to cost us additional? You know, the answer to that is probably not. It's probably gonna cost us something slightly additional to what we're gonna get back for the value of that truck. Now, fortunately, it was not that old, so hopefully that gap is not too much, but that would be one location where that money would be found. Yep.
So based on what you're saying is that there will be a depletion from these accounts.
Most likely.
And as such, I would recommend that we vote this amendment down.
Rick? Good morning, Rick Alpers, Hall Road. In all due respect, Paul, your amendment in 2017 was bad, and the amendment offered today is also bad. With all due respect, I just, you know,
We don't need to make it personal.
Next to the budget itself, this is probably one of the most important articles.
If you can speak in that speaker like everybody
Sorry,
else, I'll
Boke.
hear you.
Turn them up. Next to the budget, this is probably one of the most important articles on the warrant, which is it's about planning and saving for the future. When you look at the end of Don's sheet in 2031, you'll see that there should be about $550,000 raised for that engine replacement. We're going to be lucky if that engine isn't $1 million at that point, and they take about 36 months to build today. So it's super important that we put our dollars and cents away now, our pennies away now, so we're not in total sticker shock in 2031 when that price is probably double what we're going to have in that savings account.
Other questions? Bo?
That's all right. I'm all in favor of cutting this, in favor of doing everything we can. You know, it's amazing how we are so rich around here. They got so much money in their pocket when they're here, but when they go to pay that bill, oh, what happened? Well, it happened because on account of you, it happened. We are just spending money so foolishly. And you know, the worst part of we haven't got to the other part yet, where we are going to ask for, no, they're going to say 600,000 that they're shy of. But no, they're going to be another $1.5 million before they get this bonanza thing that they call it. They need it so bad. And I understand why they needed it, because one person said water was right up to the front door. The other person says, I only could dress up between the trucks. What a deal we got going on. Please, people, vote everything down you can if they want extra money for, and this town will exist. But I'm telling you, between the meetings I had 2 or 3 years ago, the police station and the fire station was all fine. We got 2 new people from another country comes in here. In this place, we need new. Shut them down, will you please? Amen.
Rob?
Ben.
Rob Glassett, Oakcrest Road. I'm going to take my budget committee hat off for a second and put my hat on that this is the guy that actually maintains that fire truck that Paul's talking about. One of the things I disagree with in the CIP is that each truck is recommended as a 25-year replacement. The reality of that is those are 3 major pieces of apparatus. One of them's good for a lifespan about 15 to 18 years, in my opinion. The other one good for about 20 to 25, and the other one good for about 30. This particular one being the one that's the frontline piece that runs the most and gets the most usage. It should be replaced right now. Last year, we spent $25,000 on an emergency repair of the transfer case and the transmission. That's only one item. So let's say hypothetically we have an issue with the engine or the pump itself, then we're talking about another potential $25,000, $30,000 and so on and so forth, going up to the year 2030 if it even makes it that far. Just to kind of back up Rick's point, $700,000 is what we might be able to replace it for right now. And with all the NFPA regulations that keep coming out and being added, and we have no choice but to purchase an engine built to those specifications. It's just going to go, like he said, it's probably going to double in price at that point. So I urge you all to vote this down. In my opinion, I don't want to spend more money. But unfortunately, I believe that line's actually underfunded to begin with. Thank you.
Tom?
Tom Caldwell, Bristol, Summer Street, Bristol. With inflation where it is right now, any money that we put away is going to be eroded immediately by inflation. It made sense, capital reserve funds make sense at certain times when inflation is low. It is good to set aside money for the future, but when that money is going to be eroded away by inflation, it doesn't make sense. So for this year, I think it makes sense to cut what we're setting aside that's just going to be eroded in the past. And then there's also that valid argument that those of us who are paying for this now are not going to be around when the purchases are finally made. So why are we paying for what future people are going to need? Particularly when right now everyone is stressed with the finances because of inflation. So I think this year it's a good idea to go with Paul's amendment.
Okay, other discussion? You'd like to speak again?
Yes, I'd like to mirror what Tom just said on one part, which was, that there is erosion going on as far as your, saving for something that's going to be very expensive, both Rick and Rob have said, in the future years. So what is the value of that $500,000? The capital reserve, in my mind, I should back up here. I didn't mean it, Tom, from a standpoint that was kind of just a gotcha about the age part of everyone here. But I think we'll all still be around. But the part that really drew my attention to this was the command vehicle, the new command vehicle at the fire department. It's a $60,000 command vehicle. All of a sudden it showed up. I looked on Dawn's sheet. It was a priority 4, which means it could have been deferred. And we got a $60,000 vehicle. I never heard that coming. I mean, I do pay attention a little bit, but I never saw that coming, and it came right out of that account. So I guess that's what kind of focused me on looking at where else some of those priorities are in the years out. That's how I got to 2031. But the command vehicle kind of drew my attention to it, and that's why I proposed this.
We'll come to you, but I didn't want to just call on Joe first. So.
Good morning, Joe Caristi, 30 Chestnut Street. As somebody who will be around in 2031, I am against this motion. And I also think I've been to enough town meetings where if there was a $700,000 warrant article today for a fire truck, the conversation would be, why did we not plan for this ahead of time? And I've heard that conversation multiple times in the years I've been at a town meeting. So I think planning ahead is the right approach. I think my 7-month-old daughter would also agree. So thank you.
Chief?
Yeah, I just want to clarify Paul's comment about the command vehicle. So the new utility truck, that blue-gray deal that sits out in front of the fire station most days, that was a grant-funded truck. It was about $40,000. The town share of that was roughly $3,000 to get that grant. So we did not spend $60,000 on a new vehicle this year at the station.
Other questions, comments? Ernie?
Ernie Richards, King Arthur Lane. One of the things been hearing for years, about the fire department, they do a good job. I understand. We have a numerous amount of fire vehicles. One of them now that we have this new truck, even if it's grant, that means it's on the books, and now it's going to be replaceable at some point. I would like to see the budget committee or the select board to form a committee independent of the fire department and take an honest assessment on exactly how many fire vehicles we really need. I'll stress, over the years, I've seen the ladder truck around town. I've seen it down at the park with hosing the kids down during the summer. But as far as how useful we really need that truck is questionable. And I would like to see an honest assessment, and like I said, an independent committee completely devoid of any fire people so that they can make an honest assessment. Thank you.
Very good.
Okay, other discussion?
Behind you.
Oh.
And behind you.
You want to speak again? Okay. I'm going to let this lady speak and then I'll call it.
Marjorie Roy, North Main Street. I'd like to just say that as far as the ladder truck goes, not every town has one. And if you need one, it's nice to have a nearby town that can come with mutual aid and a truck, a ladder truck. I know this personally from living in Andover. We didn't have a truck. The house next door to us burned. Our house burned. We needed ladder trucks. So just remember that not all towns have them.
Okay, Rob.
Just a couple points of information to Ernie's comments. The utility truck that was added, not only was that added, but there was also a forestry vehicle that was taken away this year. So there was no vehicle added. It's a wash there. Also, one other point I wanted to make is I'm not sure what page it's on in the town report, but if you look at the town's revenues, the fire department produces the most amount of revenues of any other department. No? Well, oh, okay, I apologize.
Tax collector, yeah.
Yes, the tax collector, right, okay. I stand corrected. The fire department last year produced approximately, I believe, close to $600,000 in revenue, which offsets that budget and offsets those purchases we make and the ability for the department to do their job with the equipment that they have. Now, another thing to Ernie's point, he mentioned the ladder truck, and I appreciate Marjorie's point as well, that there isn't another one in the area. When you need it, you need it. But that's one vehicle that I would support not replacing within 25 years, as we may be able to get 30 to 35. But unfortunately, we don't know that until we get to that point in time. So, because that vehicle does not get as much use as the others do. But so again, I would implore everybody to please vote this motion down. Thank you.
Anyone else want to? Yes.
Carter Morrison, 262 Morrison Road. I'm all for, saving money. I make car parts for a living, and in case no one's noticed, our current president doesn't like oil. And so we're talking about replacing engines and stuff like that for the future. And we're talking about getting trucks in the future, but what is our future for actual vehicles? Doesn't look very good at all. In fact, I make a lot of money at Frudenberg. I do very good at Frudenberg, but Frudenberg doesn't have a future if we go to electric vehicles. Bringing me to this point, what is our future? It doesn't look very good. Thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments?
Can I make a?
David?
I just wanted to make a quick point as another person who will probably be here in 2030.
I can't hear you.
Yeah,
okay. How about now? All right. I just want to make another comment as someone who will probably be here in 2030.
Just introduce yourself.
David. My name is David Byler. I live on Crescent Street in Bristol. And that is just as a cautionary tale, because depending on the needs we get as taxpayers, we get encouraged to be savers. And in other needs, we get encouraged to be borrowers. And really, you can't have it both ways. In general, I feel our country is going to learn hard lessons, as we learned 100 years ago, about speculative thinking, and in our age today, easy money. And so I would just encourage everybody to lean towards the worst case scenario. That's it. Okay.
I actually just, sorry, I'm Susan Sedano, and I'm from Peaked Hill Road. I just have a question, actually, because it's something I'm kind of ignorant on here that I don't know. But this money that you're asking to appropriate, $379,000, right?
are we able to invest that money and not in like the 401k, not in, in a thing? Can we invest it like in CDs and whatever to have that money grow? Is this what we do in the town? So that money is actually, going to grow, and what the money we have in there is growing as we speak. Oh, sorry. And that money that we spend, or that we have in the account right now is growing because you're able to do that and make it expand. So is that something that when you say how much you have in the account, does that take into the account that growth as well? Okay, all right. That's what I was just wondering on that. I think it's a good point, however, for that fellow who just mentioned about Freudenberg. That's something I think about all the time, because it's true. If this does go forward, that company is out of here, and then we have to have a next plan. So exactly right. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments, or are you ready to vote? Okay,
Vote it down.
Mrs. Frazier.
Vote for it, I mean.
Vote to close debate. Bulk seconded it, okay. So we have a motion to close debate. This is to close debate on the amendment. This is the amendment proposed with regard to amending Article 14, basically to change the appropriation from $379,000 to $184,000 by deleting two of the categories, the fire equipment and highway equipment funds. Okay, everybody understand that? Okay, so we're closing the motion on to close debate. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. So we close debate again on the amendment. Again, the amendment to reduce the amount appropriated from $379,000 to $184,000. All those in favor, and everybody understands that, I presume. So all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay. Okay, I'm just going to have a quick raising of hands. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The amendment's been defeated. The nays have it. Well, that brings us back to the original article. Is there any discussion now on the original article unamended? If not, is there a motion to close the debate on that? Okay. Mrs. Dowie moves to close debate, and seconded by Bruce Dorner. Okay, there's a motion to close debate on Article 14. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And all opposed say nay. You've closed debate on Article 14. You now be voting on Article 14 as it appears in your warrant. If you vote yes, you'll be voting to adopt that just as it appears in your warrant. If you vote no, you'll be voting in opposition. All those in favor of Article 14 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. Nay. The ayes have it, and you've adopted the provisions of Article 14. Article 15, to see if the town will vote to amend the Police Special Details Revolving Fund established by town meeting vote in 2015, such that 100% of revenues received for police special details shall be placed in the Police Special Details Revolving Fund. And is there a motion?
I move the article, Mr. Murray.
Moved by Selectman Milbrand and seconded by Selectman Avery. And would you like to
I can speak to it.
speak to it?
This fund was set up in 2015 to get the police detail monetary, exchange, if you will, or payments out of the general budget. When it was in the general budget, it was always a guessing game because every year the amount of details is unknown. Coming in today, you probably saw the details sitting by the power lines. You don't know whether that's happening or not all the time. So it was really bad having it in the budget because you either underfunded the entire budget or you overfunded the entire budget by having it. And the town wisely set up this fund so that all the monies for that go through this fund. The income goes into this fund, and then the wages and benefits and retirement are all paid out of this fund. It was set up initially to have 20% of the money coming in go to the general fund as, quote, administrative costs. And the rest of it would be there to, pay the wages, the retirement, and also there's a little bit extra that would build up over time that would be applied towards a purchase of a new cruiser. Back in 2015, the cost of things were such that worked out pretty well, and every year or two, we would have $10,000 or so to apply towards a new cruiser. Unfortunately, with inflation, retirement going up, things like that, the amount left over to purchase a new cruiser over the last 2 or 3 years has not been there. So what this amendment would be to not deposit that 20% into the general fund and get basically not lost, but it would be in there with all the other funds. This would keep it 100% of the funds that come in to build up in this detail fund so that at the end of the year, rather than having to put 54,000 in like we just did on the previous amendment, we would be able to offset some of that money by $10,000 or $15,000 from this fund, as if you would look back in previous years that we had done. We would only have, for a $50,000 cruiser a few years ago, we only had to put away $35,000. So that's the purpose of this fund. It's not taking anything out of taxes. In essence, it might be raising a few pennies because you're not getting revenues into the general fund. However, you're saving that when you're keeping it and putting it towards a new cruiser. So as far as your taxation, this is a wash. It's just where you're saving the money for that cruiser. I hope I didn't make this too complicated.
Questions, comments?
Can I ask?
Vote?
Yeah, you're saying this 100% that they make and everything is going for a new cruiser or something like that? It isn't going for other stuff at all?
Correct. The way this fund is set up, there's restrictions on what this fund can be used for. It can be used for paying the wages and benefits, and it can be used for purchasing a cruiser. Those are the two things that money can be taken out of this fund for, nothing else. You can't buy a new dog or anything like that from it.
Okay, so what you're saying is no big deal to this anyway. It should have been done that way without even having anything like this, because it would automatically be going to them anyways, wouldn't it? Why do we have to have a special thing on it if it's going to go to, set up so it does go to them?
I'm not quite sure your question, Boke.
Well, I'm not either, so I'm kind of confused on that. I just don't understand, if 100% of this goes to them anyways, I can't see what difference it would make being just left alone if we going to them anyways, unless you're making a new law in there. But if you wasn't making a new law, why wouldn't it automatically go to them anyways, unless you say it can't go to them? I just don't understand it, just more paperwork.
Actually, it is a paperwork thing, Boke. Right now, what happens is 80% of the money from detail goes into this fund, 20% goes into the general fund. And essentially, it's in your checkbook. And when we go to buy a cruiser, we have to take it out of that checkbook. What this does is it'll keep that extra 20% in the savings account rather than going to the checking account. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Is there a
Make a motion to close debate.
Okay. So moved and seconded. Excuse me? Lorraine Bowmiller. Okay, seconded by Lorraine. So we'll be voting to close debate. and this is closing debate on Article 15. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Now you're voting on Article 15 as it appears in your warrant. It has not been amended. All those in favor of Article 15 as it appears in your warrant signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. You've adopted the provisions of Article 15. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to establish a Highway Department Projects Capital Reserve Fund under the provisions of RSA 35-1 for the purpose of funding highway projects, such as bridge replacement or repair, culvert replacement or repair, and other road repair projects, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be placed in this fund. Said sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised by taxation. Further, to name the select board as agents to expend from said fund. Majority vote required. Is there a motion?
Yep, Mr. Moderator, I move Article 16 as written.
Moved by Selectman Brown and seconded by?
I'll second it.
Seconded by John Seller. And would you like to address your motion?
Hello again. Here we go talking about capital reserves again. Where this started, what started this conversation was the necessity to replace the culvert on Danforth Brook Road. And the state has a list of, they call it a red list of bridges which they will fund the repair of. This past year, the state changed how they move the items around on that list. So if you're number 5 this year and 3 drop off ahead of you next year, you're not number 2 next year. 10 could come above you on that list. So there's no guarantee in your order on that list how soon your project is going to get done. That was number 1. The other part is, when they do fund it, the town has to pay 20% of it regardless. So the approximate amount for the Danforth Brook Road culvert repair was $500,000, which meant that we would have to come up with 20% of that. So we had the conversation, well, we're not sure when this is going to happen, how much inflation is going to change that number, how high it's going to go. So let's start putting some money aside for that. That was where the $50,000 number came up as half of our 20%, basically. Then our conversation continued at the select board saying, this seems like this is probably a good idea for a number of the other issues we have around town with the roads, where sometime in maybe the near future, we have some culverts that have to be repaired that are going to be costly items in a similar way to this. So that's kind of the background of how we ended up at this spot. The number for 50,000 came up basically, as we said, for about half of what our responsibility would be for this project. This year, if you vote to approve this year, the 50,000 will come out of the unreserved fund balance. It won't come out of taxation. In future years, we would opt to put this again into the CIP, and that it would be funded out a number of years, and with the input of the road department saying what types of things do we have coming up, and we're saving money ahead to take care of the big ticket items to fix our bridges and culverts.
That's it. Thank you. Yep. Questions, comments?
So as you can see, the Budget Committee voted to not recommend, Charlie Terrio, Hall Road. As you can see, the Budget Committee voted not to recommend this article, and we do hope that you reject it. The host of reasons why Budget Committee members were against this article is vast. I would say personally, as a member of the Budget Committee now for 4 years, we feel that highway projects should be part of the traditional budget process and that works well, and we do not want to create this separate fund for this particular purpose. And, well, have other comments too, I assume.
Paul Manganello, 1777 Lake Street, Bristol. I don't support this amendment because it's going to put yet another article on the CIP program that I'm only halfway lukewarm in supporting. But I agree that it should be something that comes up every year as a tax line, no different than road paving, that we put paving out there, or we could put asphalt out there. I mean, bridge repair. The contingency fund might be an opportunity here to increase the amount in the contingency fund. Right now, we just voted for $25,000 in the contingency fund. You're asking for $50,000 to be added from unassigned fund balance, and why not put it in the contingency fund for those type of efforts?
Thank you. Hold on, Paul.
So again, Paul Regan, Blue Tick Drive. As Charlie said, there are a number of reasons. A big reason for me personally, and I've said this to a number of people, but most of you haven't heard it, is I strongly disagree with the thought that when you take money out of the unassigned fund balance, you're getting something for free. The town spends money, it's coming out of our pockets. If we spend money out of the unassigned fund balance, it goes away. And if we don't spend money out of the unassigned fund balance, it's sitting there in an account, and the select board can use it to offset costs and therefore have a need to raise less money through taxation. So don't think of this as, gee, this is a freebie because it's coming out of unassigned fund balance. When we spend money, we spend money out of our pockets. Doesn't matter whether it comes out of, which account it comes out of. Thank you.
Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. 3 Pauls in a row, Paul Fraser Willamette. And that touches a little bit what I was going to ask, and it's really a point of clarification. We have one more warrant article after this, I believe $107,000 for radiant heat in the new public safety building, all being requested from unassigned fund balance. And I would turn your attention to page 25 in our town report. At the very bottom, I see in anticipation of these 3 articles passing, at least as far as the select board is concerned, for a total of $182,000. The budget committee, as you've heard, has said that they're not for this, so their number is $132,000. And under the last line in the report, it talks about fund balances to reduce taxes. And the question I have for the board is, at tax rate setting time, is it the intention not to ask for any of the fund balance to offset taxes because $182,000 is being anticipated to be voted today? And I think the broader question I have is transparency. As Paul had mentioned, this is our, fund balances are tax dollars. So to be told, vote this in because you won't raise your taxes, it's still tax dollars being used. And I guess the short answer is, if the board decides, no, at tax rate setting time, we're not going to take anything more than what was being done here, the transparency issue is it's kind of targeting warrant articles that the board may like. There's fund balance, and it used to be that things would come before this legislative body and they'd be discussed and we would vote on them. And then the select board at the end of the year sits down with the representative of the Department of Revenue Administration and is asked the question, how much of the fund balance you want to take out to offset taxes? And it's just a general kind of thing. Here it seems to be targeted and specific for articles, warrant articles, and I'm not sure everybody here, myself included, understands that that's what's happening here, and it seems to be a departure from the way we've always done it. So if, in fact, everything, all these 3 articles do pass, that's $182,000. So I guess the first question is, if there's no more money being asked from the fund balance, then essentially that's how we're getting the money for what's being voted on today. Thank you.
Don Milbrand, Hemp Hill Road, and some of this is going to be answering questions as select board as well. I would like to call your attention to the fact that there's been 3 questions just asked, and they all were asked by Paul. So I'm going to answer Paul's question. My friend Paul Manganello, I'd like to address one of the statements that he made about using the contingency fund for projects like this. That would not be allowed because there's no appropriation made for this. So if this board or this body has not made an appropriation, then you can't use the fund, you can't use contingency fund just for anything. The contingency fund can only be used for something that has an appropriation line. So that really isn't a good way to make an alternate of this proposal. My friend Paul Reagan was exactly correct about his statement on the use of unreserved balance. That, yeah, it's not raising your taxes now, but it's also money that is not available to lower your taxes at the end of the year by the select board. And that segues into the third Paul's question about whether the select board is planning on using unreserved fund balance to lower taxes. I will not be part of the board, but that is done at the end of the year, and there's a number of things to be considered. So your answer to that is right now, no, the board is not considering anything. That is done in the November timeframe. But starting this fund and using the $50,000 of unreserved balance will take away the money available for them to reduce taxes at the end of the year. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Paul, to address one of the things you said, maybe because I was talking and reading, my intent was not to try to trick you all into thinking you're not paying for this somehow. It's coming from the unreserved fund balance, and that it wasn't purposefully to make a lack of transparency on my part. So we had a very serious discussion about this at the select board about what is our unreserved fund balance and what are all these different things that we're trying to solve. And there was a conversation about we're very hesitant to reduce that unreserved fund balance unless we think that it's really important. So if I made the mistake and you think that I was trying to trick you and hide this from you, that wasn't my intent. So just want to make that clear. Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
Charlie Terrio, Hall Road. Just to go back to the initial point, the Budget Committee looks at this as a system of checks and balances. One thing, when you become a member of the Budget Committee, you realize that the Budget Committee actually has quite limited power. At the end of the day, we craft a budget that creates a final number that then you vote on, and at that point, the Select Board really has the ability to spend that fund, that money. So we really do hope that you keep some of the power shifted away from the Select Board in this case, more towards you and more towards the Budget Committee, because we really do feel like that is a better way to do business in this case.
Rick Alpers, Hall Road, Bristol. This article isn't about power. This is about really what's doing the right thing. When I look at this article and why I'm in favor of this article is, if Mark and the Highway Department were to lose a culvert mid-year, well, where's that money going to come from? Well, it's going to come out of his budget, and then that's the middle of the summer, and now all of a sudden he's short on sort of dollars to buy salt and sand getting ready into the winter. So, when he has a large expense that isn't covered by FEMA in a disaster event, then those dollars have to come from somewhere. And generally, in his largest part of his budget is salt and sand, right? And sort of overtime and whatnot in the winter months. And if you looked at the winter we just had, it was another tough one. So I like this article because we're planning for the future. And if we have an event that isn't covered by FEMA or disaster, we're not hitting the operating budget to fix something of a larger scale.
Anyone else? Again.
So I would say this is not about Charlie Terrio Hall Road. This is not about salt and sand. If we really did need this money for a culvert or something like that, for example, in highway projects this year, we have $360,000. I think as a budget committee member, if we had to shift money away from paving one year to meet a real need, we would certainly fund that the following year.
Janet Metcalf, Hall Road. There's a lot of us here from Hall Road. I just have a question. I'm a little unclear about the signed reserve fund. Like, how much money is in that, and what is it generally used for if it's not used to reduce taxes at the end of the year?
I don't have the current balance off the top of my head. Maybe Bob can find that for us. But we can't just use that money on anything. It's very specific. We can decide when it comes time to set the town tax rate how much we are going to use. We have all the ability. We could say we're going to use all of it to offset taxes. The state recommends, it's not a requirement, the state recommends that you have a certain amount in that fund based on basically your annual budget, a percentage of your annual budget. The monies that go into that fund are basically, thank you. Currently, there is $786,439 to be exact. Now, that sounds like a lot of money. However, sometimes, and I think we're past that point now, but sometimes that number is affected by basically assessment challenges. If you're in quote over assessments, like with the utilities, for years we had $300,000 to $400,000 wrapped up in that we couldn't touch because of those challenges. And so the recommendation is to have a certain percentage range based on your budget. Now, obviously, yeah, we could say we're going to use all of that to offset taxes one year, but then if something happens, you're in real trouble. Selectmen can only spend that on reducing taxes. We can access it in the case of an emergency, a declared emergency that might be refunded by FEMA. Otherwise, it's you people in this room who decide how that money gets spent through these warrant articles, or whether you support it or not.
Paul Manganello, 1777 Lake Street, Bristol. Being the first Paul that was addressed there, I'm going to go back to that. And thank you for the Budget Committee member to pointing out that the highway projects are here. And Highway Project 395 just says generally other projects. So, I mean, that line could be used to fund something from the CIP or the contingency fund. Unfortunately, someone put a zero in that column, and now it doesn't have an appropriation. Is that correct? Because there's not even $1 in that line. There's a zero in there.
What line are you talking?
Highway project, I'm on page 37. 395. There's a zero in there, and therefore nothing could be put into that. Is that correct? There's a zero for the budget. It doesn't have an appropriation of any money at all, not even $1.
It is, you want me to come in?
Yeah.
That line is zero, but what you have to think of is at the end of the day, you basically have 360,000. Just because a particular dollar amount is listed in maybe paving or chip sealing does not mean it couldn't be used by the select board for a culvert replacement or this type of repair.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Bo?
I'm having an awful hard job understanding all this, but I hope you people will vote for the Budget Committee for the first time. They turn around and they work real hard for us. I've had trouble with them too. But I'm telling you right now, how much more money do you have to put into this kitty? And they already told you the select board can still do whatever they want with it. And you guys believe the other guys say, oh, no, they can't touch it. Somebody's full of bull. Because those selectmen can touch anything they want. They got the power to do anything they want. And they're showing you they got the power. So vote vote for what the Budget Committee is saying for this $50,000. Right now, if you figured out what the Highway Department is costing us, it's costing us $27,000 for every mile of road that we got, and we got 40 miles of road. This budget is way over for that Highway Department, and you keep on shoving it right into them. They don't need it. Hopefully you'll start seeing in your book where it's going, and a lot of it is really wasted. Go for this and shut it down. We don't need it. Thank you.
John?
John Sellers, Briar Hill Road. The thing that says here in Article 16, it's a project. The thing I've always hated in the Budget Committee, the budget is your budget. Like, hey, I got electric every month, I got gas every month, all right? This is for projects. So putting it aside is not a big deal. And also, you are taking it from we already have the money in the bank. It's sitting there. All you're doing is putting it over here and putting it in this bank. That's all we're doing.
Sharon Lee, North Main Street. I just have one question. Did Bristol get any money from the federal infrastructure bill? Because as far as I'm concerned, we're paying for it, and we'll be paying for that for a long time. Thank you.
You're right. Does somebody want to answer the question?
Yes, we did. However, as usual, it came with very particular strings attached. One, we have to use it for a bridge. It's 128? Roughly $128,000, which we have to use for a bridge, and we cannot put it in any account and have to spend it by a certain date. So we have to earmark that for a project. Now, unfortunately, the one most in need of changing, that doesn't come close to covering the cost of what that's going to be. So we will be working on a list of smaller projects that we can accomplish with those funds.
So we have to spend it by 2025.
Which has to be spent by the end of 2025.
Okay, you ready to vote?
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody want to make a motion to close debate? Is that Scott up there? Scott Sanchagrin? Yep. And Sue Colby seconded it. Okay, and this is on Article 16. And which has not been amended. Article 16, to close debate on Article 16. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. You've closed debate on Article 16. Now we'll be voting on Article 16. If you vote yes, you'll be voting to adopt the provisions just as they appear in your warrant. If you vote no, you'll be voting against that. All those in favor...
Wait, Ned.
Yes.
I didn't get that clear. Let me hear it clear from you.
If you vote yea, you'll be voting to adopt the provisions of Article 16 just as they appear here in your warrant today.
That's taking the 50,000 off?
Right, well, that is creating a highway department projects capital reserve fund and appropriating the $50,000 to raise the $50,000, which would come from the unassigned fund balance.
So what was the amendment? I thought we had to take the 50,000.
There is no amendment on this one.
What's that?
There is no amendment.
There isn't anything saying we want to take the 50,000 off?
No.
No.
Just vote no.
No, it's either up or down.
Okay, so what you're saying, if we vote a yay for the 50,000, it'll go through, and you're saying if we don't want the 50,000, we go the other way. Is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you for your parliamentary inquiry.
I'm sorry.
Okay, all those in favor of Article 16 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay. Okay, we need a show of hands. All those in favor of Article 16, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. I think I'm going to need a couple of supervisors here. If you could come down.
Can Susan stay up there? So she doesn't have to come down?
Susan, you don't have to come down if you.
Right.
Okay, so Susan, what I'm going to have you do is count everybody from that aisle over and this table here. And Wendy, you count everybody in the middle. And if you would come over here and count everybody on that side of that aisle.
And the select board.
And the select board. Right. Okay. So, this is Article 16. If you are in favor of Article 16, please raise your hand and keep it up so you can be counted. How many?
I have
14. How many did you count?
8.
8. And Susan? 12. And now, if you are opposed to Article 16, please raise your hand. How many? 18. 22.
7.
7. It appears that the vote in favor, yea, is 34, nay is 47. You've defeated Article 16. Article 17, to raise and appropriate the sum of $107,000 for the purpose of radiant heating in the public safety building. Said sum will come from the unassigned fund balance, and no amount to be raised by taxation. Further, to authorize Select Board to look for grants to offset all or part of this appropriation. And is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Moderator.
Moved by Selectman Legue and seconded by? Yeah, Tyler Ford seconded it. Okay, and would you like to address that?
God, I love this town. So last year, we all came together and by vote of this body decided that it was time to build a police and fire building, a public safety building. And we have been working through the course of the year to get that project up and running. We have had some, as typical, had some delays, but you're now starting to see some stuff happening there. You should see fencing and signage and demolition start within the next few weeks. That's exciting.
The fencing was up this morning.
Fencing was up this morning, great, I didn't drive by it, awesome. So some activity happening there. As anybody who's done a home repair project in the last 3 years will see or run into, budget We had some budget issues regarding what the total project came back at. We did have some stuff that we said we could live without, or we would try to fund as the years go along, some stuff that we could do without, some changes that we made. And it comes down to the thing as a board that we felt was worthy of putting in front of you for an additional consideration at this time is this article for the radiant floor heating in the apparatus bay of the building. Now, the rest of the building has, obviously will have heat, but we feel that, well, two things. One, we're up against the time frame where we need to make this decision, so that's why we wanted to be able to see if you folks would approve this. If it gets approved today, basically that decision will be in the process, within just a few weeks. So that's exciting. Excuse me. We can go into a lot of details about the construction cost, but basically there is this project, which is $107,000, would be changed and made into radiant floor heating for the apparatus bay. The reasons for doing that and the reasons why we want to do that, it gives us the ability to continue to solicit grants for this funding, but we have to have this okay from the board, from the voting body to do that. It is for the folks unaware, this is a heating system that's built into the slab itself. It heats the large slab, and think about how large this is going to be. This is where all of the fire trucks spend their time out of the weather. And so it is a very efficient way of heating a space like that basically from the ground up as opposed from the ceiling down. It's a quieter workspace. There's the warmth of the slab allows for, in the winter, for a snow melt off and removal, decreasing slip hazards. Basically, this talks about the functionality of that building and efficiency of that building. And I very much hope that the folks here support this, and happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? Yes.
Charlene Fraser, Willamette Road. I just have a question whether or not there's any offset for the yearly cost of the radiant heat versus the ceiling heat.
We want to know that too. We were just having a further discussion just Thursday night regarding that because we knew this would be asked, and bravo for question number one. The problem is there aren't a lot of tools out there to figure this out for a building like this. So we believe it's more efficient. We're told it's more efficient. I don't have a citation for you on how much that would be.
Okay, thank you.
Tom
Caldwell, Summer Street. In terms of the offsetting costs from grants, I understand the town has some federal ARPA funds available. The county has some federal ARPA funds that could be applied to this potentially. I know it's not guaranteed, but I just wanted to get an idea of, we're not necessarily paying this out. Our local tax money, federal money, of course, is out of our pockets as well. But I just want to find out what the possibility is for the grant funding that would cover this or part of this.
We did receive some very good news that we will be able to use the remaining ARPA. We believe that we'll be able to use the remaining ARPA funds that we have to help with certain aspects of this project. Boak mentioned the number of $600,000. We are not asking the taxpayers to come up with that $600,000. There are things that we can live without. There are changes that have been made to the building to reduce that number. There are things like the second layer of paving is in that number, we can put that into our paving schedule over time and save a couple $100,000 there. We do have, as mentioned, those ARPA funds. We are looking at what other parts of the building we can use that for in addition to this. But that doesn't mean there aren't other funds available. There are some funds at the county that we're going after that they received. And frankly, the county seems to forget about us in this part of the county. But we will be going after those and others.
Ernie?
Ernie Richards, King Arthur Lane. Coming from a construction point of view, this building was designed by an architect and had engineers. What was the basic idea, what they were using originally?
It was designed and previously built in other locations with the radiant floor heating. But when the construction costs came back higher, this was one item that we said we could live without if we had to, based on getting the project built. It is a desire to have it, and it's how the building is designed.
All right, so the garage itself has heat, but it's ceiling heat. Is that what you're saying?
The rest of the building has normal heat.
Come to the microphone.
I have a couple more questions.
Without the radiant, there would still be heat in that room. It would be the typical heaters that you see basically mounted on the ceilings, which is a pretty ineffective way to heat a large open space.
All right, Sean, so that has a cost. Did the contractor give you a credit, both for the installation and for the material that would apply to this cost of the radiant floor?
If I understand your question correctly, without the radiant floor heating, yes, there would be, in the original budget, there is money to install the other type of heaters.
Okay, how much money that could be used to go towards the radiant floor? How much is there?
The 107 is the net amount you need.
The 107 is the net amount that we need. So I don't have the exact number that you're looking for, but if it were to change to the radiant, that is the difference that we need to come up with.
So this is a alternate to the job. This is, in other words, whatever the base cost was there, you've already taken that into consideration.
This was part of the original specification, which we removed because of pricing.
Okay, for instance, do you know what that figure is? Is it 80,000? Is it 100,000? And
I don't
now
have.
they're going to add another 100,000 to the base. That's what I'm after.
We are adding another if you vote for this, you are adding another $107,000 to the total price of that building. Yes.
But you don't know exactly what portion that the ceiling.
I don't have the individual breakdown, Ernie, no, but we'll be obviously, it'd be after the vote, but I can certainly get that information for you.
That would be helpful, because now you have an idea, because how many quotes did he come up with? You know, I'd like to see the whole package there, because it shouldn't be just one person looking at this and just saying, hey, this is what it costs.
No, it isn't. We have a public safety building committee that has been working with the builder and with the fire and the police department on the cost of this, and we'll continue to work with them throughout the construction of the building.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Bo.
Yes. You brought up my name here on this price on the asphalt, or 600 and some odd thousand. That's all wrong, what I asked. I would like to know from them how much more. They're very nice at this, but we're going to cut. And the amazing thing, none of you people was at that budget meeting, only my big mouth was there, but I could not get things right across them. But I was told by a good man, no, there's only a very few things that's going to be different on this. There won't be brick siding, for one thing. I said, oh, wow. But no, it's going to be a lot more than the brick siding. We're talking, when we had this meeting here last year, everything was hunky-dory. We got the prices right down here, and we know just what it's going to cost us and everything else. You know, you guys lie to us so good, and I don't understand why we need this. We had a beautiful fire station in the beginning. We had a beautiful police station. $500 and some odd $1,000 is what it was assessed for. And you went in there the other day and blew out all the windows because, oh, you definitely need this new building. Built in a bank where it's going to leak. Water's going to come through that place no matter how you look at it. You're putting a parking lot up on top of the side of the police station. What a design you guys have come up with. But anyway, back to this. We are going to over, and you won't tell us this, will you? How much more is this building going to cost us when it's completed? Now wait, I want to put it this way. We want doors and windows on it. And that stuff, don't tell us that, no, that wasn't included. Here you go again right now, telling us that, no, that wasn't included. It was included when we voted on this last year. All this is just like the other town was going to have. And on this, Ned, I might be wrong, I'm no lawyer, but on page 128, I would like to think maybe I'm right on default. I don't believe these guys fed us the right thing, and I think I might be right. I know I didn't have any college education, but I did get an 8th grade education, and I think I'm just as smart as anybody else. But I'm looking at this here, and when that says default, I want to know for sure last year if they were telling us the right thing, and why can't it be default if it doesn't match what they said last year? Thank you.
You may.
I wanted to address something that Tom was talking about. I brought this up at the meeting last week, that the Grafton County had about $2.3 million of ARPA money left over, and that I would track that down. Well, they said no, they didn't have that left over. Now, John, you and I are going to have to follow up on that. But they did say that there would be more ARPA money coming to the county of $500,000 total for our region, which any one town could get up to $50,000. So we will pursue that. There's no guarantee, but they did take the fact that I wrote in the email that Bristol was a hub, and it did, as far as fire goes, it would cover other towns. That's my first point. Second point, it's my first year on the select board. I stopped coming to town meetings a number of years ago because there's people in the room, oftentimes, that accuse other people of doing things when they don't know what they're saying. I've been on this select board for a year. There's not one person here that has lied about anything on this warrant. There's not one person here that has tried to deceive you in any way. Everybody sitting here, including myself, is trying to do the very best we can for you. And I personally don't appreciate that. Thank you.
Having a dress
Okay,
in the fire
okay,
department,
okay.
the other place to dress.
Hold on. Carol?
Carol Huber, Summer Street. Radiant heat is certainly a much smarter way to go than heat on a ceiling. Heat rises. So this is a smart move. I'm not sure about the money, but I do have a question of the one budget committee member that voted no and why.
I'll speak on that member's behalf. Charlie Terrio, Hall Road. The one member of the budget committee that voted against this article is not here, but to summarize her point, she questioned the efficiency and the cost of heating a building using radiant flooring. Like it's been stated, we kind of do not know what the cost savings of this system will be. and her vote against was kind of along those lines. But I will let you know that the rest of the budget committee did support this, and we do feel like it is the right way to go to heat this apparatus bay.
Yes, sir. Joe?
Joe Caristi, 30 Chestnut Street. I'm in favor of this project to put radiant heat into the public safety building. I also just wanted to offer some context. I was recently involved in a large state project, construction project, that was designed during the pandemic. Construction started towards the end of the pandemic. We saw the cost per square foot go from around $600 per square foot to $900 per square foot, and I don't see that changing a lot. So the fact that $581,000 worth of value engineering has already been found, I think that really lends itself well to the town officials and the individuals who are involved on this project being good stewards of our taxpayer dollars. So I just want to say thank you, and I certainly support this, and I think that's a great job.
Paul?
So I came up here to talk as an individual. Again, my name is Paul Regan. I live on Blue Tick Drive. I want to urge people to support this. I'm frustrated by the fact that the project was approved last year with the expectation that the costing was done thoroughly and that we definitely had enough money, and now the case is not. But that's not a question of anyone doing anything wrong or underhanded. It's the way the economy is now, as Joe just said. Prices are crazy, and we got blindsided. I don't think we're the only town that this has happened to. I'm not thrilled with spending another $907,000, but my point of view is if we're going to spend roughly $5 million on a new public safety building, it's going to last us. Let's do it right. Let's put in the features that we think in the long term are best for the town. And if that takes a little more money now, I'm not thrilled with that, but I believe it is the best choice available to us. Let's end up with something we're going to be happy with and not cut things out that we're going to be sorry we don't have in order to bring it in for the 4.8 number. Thank you.
David?
Hi, David Blyler on Crescent Street. I was just curious, under the current plan, what is the planned current fuel source for the heating system in the municipal building?
Fuel source?
Propane. I would just submit to investigate a little bit for alternatives. A lot of other large outbuildings and state buildings, including the prison in Boscawen and buildings at Plymouth State, have switched to high-efficiency, clean-burning wood units, either by pellets, dried PDCs, which are dried wood chips. It's a great local fuel source that is burned at high-efficiency rates and very low pollution. And it's also a local fuel source that I believe could substantially drop the yearly energy costs of heating the building. So if it's not been finalized yet, or it could be, I think it's worth at least looking into. There is some precedent in the state. There's a few companies that install them, Froling Energy and Keene, and Tarm Biomass up in Lyme. If it could significantly reduce yearly energy costs of the building, I think most taxpayers would be interested in that. So that's
Thank you, David.
Cheryl Szewski, River Road. Just a point of clarification. The article is to raise $107,000. And looking at the cost reduction items up on the screen toward the bottom, it has $80,000 to remove radiant heating, and then the $27,000 for insulation. So I just want to clarify, am I to understand then that Article 17 is really putting those reduction items back into the project?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Wayne?
Wayne Anderson, River Road, or Summer Street, forgive me.
I have a couple of questions. The equipment bay, how does it compare to New Hampton's equipment bay? Number one. And number two, has anybody talked to New Hampton about what it costs to heat their equipment bay? And I don't know if they're using radiant or overhead heat.
Chief, can you answer that question?
Yeah, so I don't know the exact number, just knowing the buildings. It's probably slightly larger, 15% bigger than New Hampton's. And they do have radiant floor heating in their apparatus bay, which is, now almost a 20-year-old system. And again, I don't know exactly what they're spending, but that's also the route they went with.
Thank you.
Ernie?
Ernie Richards, just a point I want to make, talking about the construction here. I don't want to criticize anybody, but I want to just say that I think we do not have enough information to really vote on this. I would like to see what it's going to estimated cost for heating versus other systems. That a very good point was made with the type of system. Once I heard propane, my antenna went up. That is not a cheap system to operate. And oil is cheaper. If you want to go and make an analysis and have it before us, it makes more sense. Thank you.
Sir.
Hi, John Miller, 180 Castle Lane. So I want to speak in favor of it, particularly from a construction perspective. We actually put that in my home, the radiant heat. It is significantly different where we don't have the studies, obviously, to be able to speak to the specifics, but anytime you look at these large bays, if you want something at 60 degrees at knee height, it's probably going to be 70, 80 degrees at the ceiling. So from a construction perspective, it definitely makes a lot more sense to deal with this now. I just want to speak in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul?
Paul Manganello, Lake Street, Bristol. I support the article, and I was just concerned that there was going to be more amendments to this article to add much more of this back in. And the fact that I haven't heard that, I can support this article as it stands.
Paul?
One last point, and this is important. I would never, having sat there before, ask the board to predict the future, but level of confidence. Reasonable to think that we can secure grant funding to at least offset some of this $107,000?
No.
Okay. And the final point, and thank you, Mr. Moderator, when I spoke earlier about unassigned fund balance or whatnot, please understand, my good friend Carol Brown Jr. there, Bruddy, I didn't suggest that anybody was doing anything untoward. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood, as Paul Reagan said, what fund balance really is. It's not free cash, and it's just a different way of doing it. And if people vote on it, understanding fully what it is, that's fine. But the board does a great job. It's not an easy job, and I wasn't suggesting anybody was trying to hide anything. So, thank you.
Okay.
Ned, once more.
Okay, we're gonna let folks speak, and then we're gonna close. I'll take a motion to close debate. Okay.
Yes,
I want hearing from the same people over again.
Okay. I want to make clear, I'm not against that radiated heat at all. I think it's a wonderful thing. What I'm trying to get across to you, how much more is this building going to cost us than what we said last year? That's what I want to know. The radiated heat, yes, it's wonderful stuff. But I'm after that dollar sign that's coming out of my pocket. If I was building a house and somebody turned around and changed the price on me, we would do it over again, rebid it or whatever. You guys are sitting right there, as far as I'm concerned. Let me know the total amount you are running over. And I mean, from last year when you said all this stuff was going to be done, like I said earlier, I don't mean taking the doors off, and I don't mean having no roof on it. I want to know the total amount you are running over on this building by having everything done. Like the other guy was just saying across here, he turns around and says, well, we want to make sure we get the best. Well, last year, supposedly we voted on it. We was happy with it. But give me the total amount more you are running over with without the boat stuff with it, okay? Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to close debate? Rick Alpers moved to close debate, and Paul Manganello seconded it. Okay, you voted, we're going to vote on closing debate. This is on Article 17. It has not been amended, so you're voting to close debate on the article just as it appears in your warrant. All those in favor of closing debate on Article 17 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. You've closed debate on Article 17. We'll now be voting on the article. Just as I said, it's to appropriate $107,000 for the purpose of radiant heating in the new public safety building. And it's unamended. You'll be voting to adopt the provisions of Article 17 just as they appear in your warrant. All those in favor of Article 17 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. Nay. The ayes have it, and you've adopted the provision of Article 17. Article 18, shall the town readopt the optional veterans tax credit in accordance with RSA 7228-2 for an annual tax credit on residential property of $500. Majority vote required. Is there a motion? Moved by Selectman Brown and seconded by Carol Huber. And you want to address the motion?
Last year in the legislature, House Bill 1667 was put forward, which the governor signed into law in May of last year. What that did was it slightly changed the qualifications for veterans who can receive the benefits in our existing credit. And it'll be the same conversation for the next article coming up, because they're two separate ones. Because of that change in the requirements, every town has had to recertify that they want to provide these credits to veterans. So this is something that we're already doing. It's been $500 for, let me back up a little bit. This one used to be for those who had been in a foreign war. The changes basically say any veteran and any current military member, so you don't have to be discharged. You can still be serving. If you're serving, you can get this credit. So that was the change that the law passed. We are coming forward to say we just need to reaffirm the town of Bristol that we want to do this. If we don't, then it will go back to a $50 amount. So you can do 50 to 750 is your choice. The town has always had 500 as this credit. So what we're asking you to do is vote on this to reaffirm that the town of Bristol will continue to do what they're doing because of the slight change in the eligibility requirements.
Any questions, comments? Okay, a motion to close debate by Joe Caristi, seconded by Mr. Fellows. And all those in favor of closing debate on Article 18 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. You're now voting on Article 18 just as it appears in your warrant. All those in favor of Article 18 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. You've adopted the provisions of Article 18. The ayes have it. Article 19, shall the town readopt the all veterans tax credit in accordance with RSA 7228B for the annual tax credit on residential property, which shall be equal to the same amount as the standard or optional veterans tax credit voted by the town under RSA 7228. And is there a motion? So moved. Moved by Selectman Brown and seconded again by Mr. Fellows. So, right. And is there any discussion?
Vote on it.
A motion to close debate. John Sellers moved to close debate, seconded by Susan Duncan. All those in favor of closing debate on Article 19 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. You've closed debate on Article 19. You're now voting on Article 19, just as it appears in your warrant. If you vote yea, you'll be adopting the provisions just as they appear in your warrant. If you vote nay, you'll be voting in opposition. All those in favor of Article 19 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. You've adopted the provisions of Article 19. Article 20. This is a petitioned article. Shall the town adopt the provisions of RSA 72, 61 through 64 inclusively, which provide for a property tax exemption from the property's assessed value for property tax purposes for persons owning real property which is equipped with solar energy systems intended for use at the immediate site? And is there a motion? Moved by Bill Dowie and seconded by Paul Bemis. And
I'd like to speak to this one just to explain it to people, if that's okay.
Well, hold on. Since you made the motion, Mr. Dowie, do you want to defer?
I defer to Paul.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Paul Bemis, 59 Castle Lane. I'm the chair of the Energy Committee in town. This is a petitioner's warrant article. This was done by residents, so this was not recommended or put forward by the select board. This is effectively a warrant article to eliminate the current tax on solar. So many people here probably don't know that if you install solar panels on your home, your property taxes go up. They go up at a rate of $500 per panel, which is added to your assessed value, and then you're taxed on that at the normal town rate. So we put together a warrant article to eliminate this. That's what this one is. It will need to be amended. There will need to be a sentence, I believe, added to it because of the lawyers needed to have a sentence added to it. So I think I'd like to begin by amending it to add the sentence. Christina, is that what we're going to do?
You have to do an amendment in writing, Paul, to add the sentence.
Okay. So you want me to do what?
You need an amendment in writing, Paul.
Yeah.
I actually have an amendment to propose if you want to start with that.
Well, I'd like to start with getting it right so that if we pass it, it works, Christina. So I think we had a sentence that needed to be added that said that it would be.
You just have to write that as your amendment and present it as an amendment.
Well, we had it before.
Well, you can't, and I think I made this clear right at the very beginning, you can't come up, make a motion, speak, and then make an amendment. So we can have intervening people. You could make the amendment after other people have an opportunity to participate.
All right, so let me just finish with why
Yes.
we're doing this.
That'd be a good idea.
So there are 10 reasons here that I've listed why. I don't want to go through each one of them. It may take a little longer. But for the most part, this is about cost. Carol brought up cost earlier, about cost of energy. Solar is the lowest form cost of energy that we could hope to have, and it provides all of us a hedge against the rising cost of electricity and the rising cost of fossil fuel for heating our homes. Furthermore, solar is energy of the future. We put solar panels on our home. We have the opportunity in the future to heat and cool our homes, to power our lights, and to eventually probably power our vehicles as well. So taxing it doesn't make a lot of sense. It disincents the deployment of solar. That's not good for us as a community. If we were to deploy solar rapidly as a community, we would benefit by investments made by the utilities in our local distribution system, which would be required in order to handle the solar. This is beneficial to us and of no cost to us. So there are many reasons why this makes sense. We believe this was put in place by the assessors. This was never voted on by us as a town to have this tax. It just came through the assessment process and therefore ended up being there. It's also not a fair tax. Taxes should be proportional. They should be based on property value. And this one is not. It's not based on property value. It seems to be an arbitrary tax based on simply the number of panels with an arbitrary rate of $500. No one really knows where that came from. It seems to have just been an arbitrary number. So it doesn't stand the proportionality test. It's regressive because if you have a fixed number of panels, typically 14 is a number that is often quoted. I just got a quote for 14 panels at $500 a piece. My assessed value of my property would go up by $7,000. It's not a big number in terms of taxes at the end of the year because it only ends up being a couple $100 in additional taxes because the tax rate's about 2%. But nonetheless, it's a disincentive. I believe, the Energy Committee believes, we should incent solar. Remember, our mission is to reduce overall cost, to improve resiliency, and to reduce our carbon footprint. Passing this would do all three. Reduce cost. If you put solar in, your cost of electricity would become fixed or lower. At least you'd know what it is over time, and chances are it'd be much, much lower than what you're paying for electricity. And of course, resiliency would be higher, particularly if you add it with a battery, which is going to get lower in terms of cost. And then, of course, carbon emission would be lower. So,
Thank you. So we'll open up for discussion. You can come up later and make an amendment if you wish to do that, Paul.
Mr. Moderator, I have an amendment.
Okay.
Mr. Milbrand. Don Milbrand. I would like to amend Article 20 to read as follows. To adopt the provisions of RSA 72:61-14, inclusively to provide a property tax exemption of 50% of the assessed value of solar power and storage equipment intended primarily for the use at the property's immediate site. I'll explain if you second it, Bob.
Yeah, is there a second to that? Randall Kelly? Seconded by Randall Kelly. And do you want to address that?
Yes, please. The reason an amendment is needed to this article from as written is the 50% part that I said. It's vague on this as written as to how much of a property, of a tax exemption on it. The 50% addresses that. I'd like to speak on how I got to the 50%. I don't believe that you should have a subsidy which is at the cost of the rest of the town. I don't believe that should happen. So I don't believe in 100% of a tax exemption on this, on a solar array. However, solar equipment should be depreciated over time because it is something that's used up. It doesn't last for the life of the house. So putting a depreciation into the assessment value would be a nightmare for the assessors. At 50%, it approximates a straight line depreciation over the life of the equipment. The other thing with this amendment is that it also includes storage, which the original amendment did not. So if you want to put solar and batteries in, that all of that equipment is included. The other thing with this amendment is it's not just for residential. If you have a property downtown that is commercial and you put solar panels on, you should get the same discount that anyone else does. And what it also limits you to immediate site only, which means you can't just buy a property, put up a bunch of solar panels and sell the electricity. That would not be allowed under this amendment.
Okay, we're, everybody clear, we're addressing the amendment now that's been made. And this is to amend the article basically to provide that the property tax exemption would be for 50% of the assessed value of the equipment, and only if it's primarily for the use of the property at the immediate site. Everybody understand that? So we're acting just on the amendment at this point in time. So if you want to address the amendment, you can speak to that now. Boak, did you want to address the amendment? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Speak.
Can I talk being against the amendment that he wants or not?
Yes.
Go right ahead. Okay, he wants a tax break on the solar panels to go on his house, right?
Yes.
On place.
Not him, but for everybody.
I'm all against that. I got a power line that goes by my house that takes care of millions of people, and they don't give me a tax break on that, because it goes wires and poles and everything. And I don't believe there should be any tax break on this at all that's benefiting from it, and I hope you people are smart enough not to let them get away with this one, because there'll be so much shit going on our roads, we won't be able to see outside.
Okay, vote. No profanity. Joe?
Joe Caristi, 30 Chestnut Street. I guess a question I have is it sounds like we're creating a tax exemption for something that ultimately the warrant is suggesting shouldn't exist in the first place. And so, and the way I think about this is it's another home improvement. Why would we not treat it as a home improvement that's a part of your assessed value? I understand the point about it being a depreciable asset, but I think there's lots of things in our homes that are not going to last the life of our home, our furnaces, our roofs, etc. So I guess a question that I have is just, is this structured as a tax exemption because that's the only way to make something like this happen, or could we just simply not have this tax period? It's the latter? Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Paul Sedano from Pickett Hill Road. And with this, who's going to pay for all these solar panels when they need to be taken down and disposed of? Who's going to pay for all the batteries that are going to need to be disposed of? Is that going to be into our dumps? Do we have to pay for that too? It's just another extra cost. You want a tax exempt, but the town's going to pay for it in the long run when it comes to disposing of all of this stuff. So who's going to pay that? And the other thing too, are we going to support China because that's the only one who supplies the solar panels? Is that where we're going to go right now? Support China? We have plenty of energy here that we could take care of?
Just address the moderator if you
Okay,
would.
that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
I'm sick and tired of supporting other countries. We have plenty of resources right here, and you're going to get a tax exempt. Did I get a tax exempt on my new propane tank? Did I get a tax exempt on my new heating system? Did I get a tax exempt on my new windows? I pay tax on that.
Okay, just to make it clear, we are addressing the amendment as opposed to the underlying bill, and the question you should be asking yourself is, do I like the amendment better than I like the underlying bill at this point in time?
Throw it out.
Carol?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. One thing I'm learning at the House of Representatives is you often vote yes for an amendment so that later on you can vote no on the bill. Don't ask me to explain that to you, but... So I want to speak to the bill overall. If this bill were to pass, the 50% number is lower than the 100% number. That would mean that would cost all of you less. So that's all I'm going to say at the amendment. I want to speak to the bill afterwards.
Okay. Yes.
Paul Bemis again, 59 Castle Lane, on the Energy Committee. I do not support this amendment because it should be 100%. Let me point out here, this is not an exemption for people doing solar. This is eliminating the tax that currently exists on only solar. We are not currently taxed in our town if we get a new furnace, for example, for our home. They don't individually tax that. Taxes should be done through assessment, as Joe pointed out, assessed value of the property. There's no evidence that solar increases the value of the property, just like there's no evidence that a new furnace increases the value of your property. So we should not be taxing solar uniquely. Now, we have to work within the guidelines of the state laws, and so what we're asking for here is to effectively provide 100% exemption, which means no tax on solar, incremental tax on solar of your home. Now, let me point out, to Joe's point, if over time solar becomes something on your home that is valued higher, right? Because the assessment process goes through normally and determines that house A is more valuable than house B. Because it has solar, that would show up in the assessment process, the normal proportionate assessment process. This one is not normal. It is arbitrary $500 per panel and therefore not proportional. It's bad tax policy is really what it is.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly?
Randall Kelly, High Street. I want to see us sell a home in New England without a furnace in it. I just put $12,000 furnace in. My hot water tank loses 1 degree in 24 hours. Where's my tax credit for that? I think to find a home that doesn't have a furnace in it, it's necessities that we tax, things that are needed to keep a home in place. Solar isn't something that is needed, it's a want. And I have a grocery list of adversary things that contribute or are going to contribute to our future because of solar. Solar is going to be the next plastic. I grew up being told that plastic was going to save the world, and now it's actually one of the biggest environmental impacts in the world. And we're still doing nothing about it. I fear that solar is going to end up in the same place. And with the list of toxic things that are in solar panels, we better figure something out as far as that goes, because the hole in the ground that they're going to put them in, which is the same one they put nuclear waste at this point, is not a result. It really isn't. We're creating the same problem we did because we think about the impact today. You know, the military does something, they go backwards. They start at their end game and they come forward for a reason, because you get to figure out all your flaws along the way. We don't do that with all these things. It's because it feels good. It's not going to feel good to our kids 30 years from now, just like the plastic that we've plagued them with. It's just my opinion. I think this should be applied to everyone. I'm totally against this, once again, because I think that we're putting something forth for our children that does not have the heartfelt effort or the intent that they mean it to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to get back again, we should be discussing the amendment at this point in time and whether you support or are opposed to the amendment to the article, which would change the formula to 50% instead of the full value and change it to only for that type of equipment that would apply to the immediate site. So that's what we should be addressing right now, whether you do or don't like the amendment. Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, so John Miller at 180 Castle again. It seems like it's almost a little bit more than that as well. It seems like it's almost whether it's this amendment or the primary article, looking at the assessment process, right? Paul, I think Paul's latest argument was it's really about assessment process. Dawn was trying to look at it and say, let's go with 50% to account for depreciation. I think some of the points are around roofing and whatnot. It's really hard to figure out which pieces. But also in the assessment process, I guess I would ask folks, isn't that a bit of a slippery slope? When we look at heating systems, heat pumps, which we'd love to get heat pumps into a lot of different places. But if you have a heat pump with a wall unit, we tax that differently than a heat pump that's connected to a central system. We look at that differently as well. So I guess I'm still trying to figure out, okay, are we really going after the assessment process? And then how are we taking the depreciation of these assets? And it just seems like we're getting ourselves into a very slippery slope from my perspective, regardless of whether it's the primary or Dawn's amendment.
Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
Paul Regan again, Blue Tick Drive. This is a strange situation because we're talking about the amendment, and I'm going to talk about the amendment, but the starting warrant article is flawed. So if we don't approve any amendments, basically nothing will happen. Without an amendment, the original article is ineffective. So I like what Carol said. I think we have to approve an amendment, and then we have to move on and vote on the amended article. And I'm in favor of Dawn's proposed amendment. Given a choice between 50 and 100%, if something passes, I'd much rather see 50 than 100. Thank you.
Motion to close debate.
Well, we have at least one other person who wants to speak. So.
I agree with closing debate, but I wanted to address a couple of the questions and also something that might be misunderstood. I put forth this amendment that don't take that to mean that I'm for this article. Sorry. Don't take my proposal of this amendment to mean that I'm in favor of the article in general. I merely did it so that, as Paul said, that we can actually have an article that will be proper to vote on. The question that I'd like to address also, as far as assessing, everybody is comparing this to like a furnace or something like that. The reason that solar panels are assessed and a furnace is not, is a furnace is not considered a structure. In assessing, solar panels by statute are considered structures, and the assessor is the one that comes up with the $500 value. So that's why this is even being discussed. And the only way to make this more like a furnace would be to vote in an exemption like this. I hope that clarifies it.
Okay, is there a motion to close debate on the amendment? John, and seconded by
Jackie Glassett.
Jackie Glassett. Okay, we have a motion to close debate. This is on the amendment to Article 20. And the amendment, just read it again, to adopt the provisions of RSA 70, 61 through 64, inclusively to provide a property tax exemption of 50% of the assessed value of solar power and storage equipment intended primarily for the use at the property's immediate site. So basically, you're looking at a 50% exemption and only for that used at this particular site. Everybody understand that? No. So if you're in favor of that amendment, you would vote yea. If you're opposed to that, you'd vote nay. We didn't vote to close debate, did we?
No, you took a motion.
Yeah, I took the motion. So we're moving to close debate. So all those in favor of closing debate on the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. Now we're voting on the amendment itself, as I just explained. So all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay. The ayes have it. And you've adopted the provisions of the amendment itself. Now we're back to the article as amended. And it may be subject to further amendment.
That's right. So Don was right. We did need to amend it in order to get started, so we have an amendment now, and now we're at the point of deciding.
Do you have it? You can't talk and then offer an amendment. So
Yep.
if you have an amendment, offer your amendment.
I have an amendment right here.
Okay, what's your amendment?
The amendment is the same exact language as before, except that we're going for 100% instead of 50% on the exemption. Effectively, this would eliminate the incremental tax on solar.
Okay, is there a second to the amendment? Bill Dowie seconds the amendment. Thank you.
So the goal of the original language that we...
Just hold on.
Yep.
So- Okay, so the way this amendment, it just says such property tax exemption shall be in the amount equal to 100% of the assessed value of the qualifying solar energy system equipment under these statutes. But this would do away with the provisions with regard to the specific site.
It's on there. It says immediate site in there, so. What the hell?
Yep, it does. Sorry. I'll just read the amendment. Shall the town adopt the provisions of RSA 72, 61, 64 inclusively, which provide for a property tax exemption from the property's assessed value for property tax purposes for persons owning real property, which is equipped with solar energy systems intended for use at the immediate site. It does. Such property tax exemption shall be in the amount equal to 100% of the assessed value of qualifying solar energy equipment under these statutes. Okay.
So this just moves it to 100%. So the point Don made about 50% still leaves a tax in place. The 100% effectively eliminates the tax, the residential increase tax on solar. Now, I want to make clear that this is not a credit. We're not giving any credits for solar. We're just not penalizing people by incrementally taxing solar on your homes. That's the point. It encourages the deployment of residential solar, which is good for, we believe, the community. Anybody considering solar would be more encouraged to put it up if they knew their property taxes weren't going to go up immediately because of it.
Okay, questions or comments?
I'd like to comment once again, just to reinforce that I don't think that the town should be encouraging things or subsidizing things. What happens with the 100% is, or any tax exemption, even the 50%, the person that has the solar gets the credit, and essentially that's less value for the town, which in essence raises the amount that everybody else pays for taxes, rather than that lowering the amount. So I would recommend that you vote this down and keep it at a 50%. That gives a break to the people that they should get, because the equipment does depreciate in value, yet it doesn't penalize everybody else to make them pay for the few people that have solar.
What are you really saying, Ned? I don't get it. I'm
Hey,
trying to.
It's not your turn. Hold on, Bo. Hold on. Go ahead.
Donna Worthen, Peaked Hill Road. My question is, how many other towns in this state do not tax solar panels separately from the overall property? Are they assessed as a whole and not individually? Does anybody know that number?
Yeah. Mr. Dowie, do you have an answer?
Bill Dowie, Galahad Lane, Bristol. There are 47 towns in New Hampshire that do not tax solar arrays.
Out of what, 200?
250. Okay. Any other questions or comments? This is on the amendment, the current amendment.
Again, let me be clear, Mr. Moderator, I want to speak against the warrant, but I don't do that now.
Yep.
Thank you.
Joe Christie, 30 Chestnut Street. I did just want to see, so we're eliminating a arbitrary specific tax of $500 per panel if we were to pass this exemption. That does not necessarily mean that that individual's property will be assessed at a lower value and therefore they're getting a tax credit by it. Right? This is really saying it just shouldn't be separate from the appraisal. Solar panels should be included in the appraisal, and by doing that, the value of that home may be higher, and so that individual would not necessarily pay more taxes. That's really just removing the arbitrary nature of the calculation here. I wanted to make that point, so thank you.
Just addressing the point that Don made about cost shifting. He is correct that there is a certain amount of money that is today collected by the town for a solar tax. The number is quite small. The number is in the range of about $7,000. This means that our tax would go up as a general population by approximately $1 or $2. So the question I have for you here, is it worth $1 or $2, roughly $2 per year for you individually to encourage the deployment of solar? $2 per year. Let me also point out, by the way, that, okay, let me leave it there.
Yeah. Can I ask a question, Paul? And that is, the exemption would, presume the exemption is to incent people to provide solar panels and have solar power and to encourage them to do so. I understand in Massachusetts, they provide an exemption in the state, but only for the original owner of the property. Once you sell the property, you no longer have the exemption. So would this apply continuously to all property owners, even subsequent ones?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. But let me make the point here that, again, it is, in Massachusetts, they provide tax credits. Here, this is not an incenting, this is effectively not disincenting. Today, we're disincented, okay? This is a disincentive because it's an incremental tax that you bear when you select solar. All we're doing here is making it an even playing field so that you're not disincented by facing an incremental tax when you put solar on your home.
Thank you. Okay, Bo.
Yes. A lot of it's really getting confusing, Ned, but all I can say, you people that got these wonderful solar systems on your roof and all that stuff, it's saving you so much money. You're selling the power back to whoever is on your line to buy it. You are selling it back to them. So you're supposed to, in other words, make power or make money with it. And then now you turn around, you're in the same boat. Because when public service shuts off your power, you don't have power either. So, and the sun don't shine at night too well. But these solar panels, I got 2 or 3 outfits that's interested in putting solar panels around. Now, you mean to tell me they're going to put those solar panels around and they're going to make money off it and they don't have to pay taxes? I think you guys are all wrong to accept this. You should not accept it. They should not ever have this kind of a deal by using our money for them to make money. There's something very wrong with it.
Okay, we're still addressing the amendment, and hopefully we're near the end of our debate.
I'm not sure this is specifically about the amendment, but I disagree with something that somebody else said, and so I want to make it clear. Paul Bemis has talked in general, kind of implied, and I think Joe Caristi just specifically said something, and I look at it very differently. I'm not an assessor, I'm not a professional assessor, but the $500 per panel, I agree, is arbitrary, but it's not in addition. The way that I understand that it works is the assessor, by state law, solar panels are considered a structure, so they need to be assessed. And the assessing community, the assessing experts have said, we don't want to go to the time and bother to do a specific analysis on every individual solar system. So we're just going to arbitrarily choose to say that the added value to your property from putting a solar system in is the equivalent of $500 a panel. So the value of your property is increased by $500 a panel, and now because you have a higher property value, you pay the same tax rate, you pay more taxes. If you approve this exemption, there will be no way for the town to ever tax the value of solar property. I'd like to ask our town administrator, Mr. Moderator, I'd like to ask our town administrator, who used to be, do you agree? I mean, how would you describe this? How would you explain this?
Can I make a comment there, Paula? You are correct.
You hold on.
Yep.
Just hold on. Do you want to address that?
Let me just, can you clarify your question? I just wanted to add that it is not an automatic exemption if you vote on it today. Anyone who has solar panels has to apply for the exemption. So, and it has to be granted that way. It will make it so that they have to be granted though, at whatever percent that you approved today. Does that answer your question?
No, the question that I had, what I thought I heard Mr. Bemis say, was that the $500 added value that's being charged now is in addition to whatever value is added to the estimated sales value of your property. So I don't think you've said it explicitly, but you've implied that it's basically double taxation. And I'm saying that I look at it, that's not how I understand it. So I'm asking our former expert to see if she can give us an expert answer.
So I did talk to the assessor yesterday, and she has confirmed that we do not double dip. You're either taxed on solar panels. It doesn't, if your property sells at a higher rate, you're being taxed on solar panels. So when that goes away, there won't be an increase in your value to be taxed on. So you won't add to your value if you're selling a property for more money because you have solar panels. So. Is that? Yes. Okay.
Clear as mud.
Okay. We all got that. Okay. Are you ready to vote on the amendment? Okay. This is an amendment, a second amendment to the article. But what this amendment does is it preserves the fact that this would only apply in cases where the equipment was used for the immediate site, or primarily for the immediate site, but it would change it from 50% of the assessed value to the full 100%.
Mr. Moderator, I move to close debate on the amendment.
Yeah, yes, good idea. Good. So, and so that's where we're at. So we're on the amendment, and there is a motion to close debate from Selectman Legue, seconded by Dorcas Gordon. All those in favor of closing debate on the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. We'll close debate. Now we'll be voting on that amendment, just as I indicated. Same provisions, except it's 100% instead of 50%. Okay, everybody understand that? You vote yes, you'll be voting to change it to 100%.
No, I don't. What I'm after, is this, we vote for this, is no gonna be voting it down, or is it voting it up?
Vote, I think what you're getting, this is an amendment. So you're still going to vote on the original article, and then on the original article, you can vote it up or down.
So this don't have anything to do with it?
It just changes the way the original article is going to look.
Oh, thank you.
Okay?
Yep, no for everything, right on.
Okay. So all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. No. Okay, the amendment has been defeated. So now we're back to the original article. Carol Brown wanted to speak on the original article.
Okay, I'm not speaking as a member of the select board, which is why I'm standing here. You can talk to them about their opinions. I have not sat down with the select board and said, let's go over this so I can have the right thing to say. So we haven't done that. Cade, you got he's working on it. He's way ahead of me.
And I should clarify, we're back to the original article as amended.
Yes. Something occurred to me when one other person was talking. Remember every time you go to buy a car and you say, I can't afford this. And the salesman invariably says to you, it's only a cup of coffee a day. It's only $1 a month. It's only, oh, you could do, like I said to me, you can get another gig. We'll talk about that person later. We can talk about that later. Here's the current, I got the title wrong, I just realized. Here's our current list of exemptions at the bottom, credits that you just voted on, that we have in the town. I'm putting this up there so you can do a comparison in your head. Americans, and particularly people in Bristol, and I think that, I don't think any of you would disagree, are very giving and gracious people. We take care of those that are in need. And there was not a no vote on the credits for the veterans. So we take care of people in need because people need our help sometimes.
Has this got to to do with this, anything to do with what we're voting on now?
You know what, do you mind if I speak?
Yes, I do, but I don't want it to go on.
Right. Just hold on, Bo.
It's on your side, Doug.
Yes. I'll reiterate what I said years ago. The first time I experienced this was in 1978 when I was running the treatment plant and got personally assaulted at the town meeting. Enough said, maybe.
No, enough.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Mr. Moderator. Going off to what Paul said, remember, an exemption will come off the value of your property. A credit is what you don't pay on your tax bill. So they are two slightly different things. And yes, the exemption will mean it's not a big amount of money to the town or to you. So what this does, and a couple of people touch on this, anytime we give an exemption to anyone that we want to help out, that doesn't change the amount of money in the budget. That means everybody in this room says, I'm willing to help someone in need. That's what this is right here. I don't think anybody denies that. This warrant article says, I want each of you taxpayers to put a little bit of money, whether it's a cup of coffee a day, towards helping someone who can afford a solar system to get a tax break on that. That's not the same as this. Now, can you go back to the slide before? I'm going to go back just a tad. I think my 3 minutes is up, John Sellers, but that's all right. The first time I heard about this, it was explained to me as number 2. That we want to incentivize, and almost the exact words, the goal of this is to incentivize other people in Bristol to install solar panels. And in my opinion, I'm going to be very clear on this, this is because there's a desire, as you see in number 7. The goal of this is to get rid of fossil fuels. And they are asking you to contribute a little tiny bit of your money to do that. So going back to the car salesman, it isn't much money per person, but is that what you want to do with your money? Do you want to, and I'm sure that Mr. Bemis et al. will disagree with me. I want to be really clear. This is about you giving a little bit of your money to go down the path of getting rid of fossil fuels. Thank you. Rob?
Rob Glass at Oakcrest Road. Ask yourself this question. How many people in this room can afford to put in a solar system right now? This article benefits 2 people, those that have solar systems and those that want to put in a solar system. Vote this down.
Okay, Wayne?
Wayne Anderson, Summer Street. So the good news is the 1,900 ratepayers here in Bristol are already subsidizing solar panels 2 ways. One, through your utility, which is offering incentives, and second, through your federal government, where we pay taxes that are subsidizing your systems going on your roof. You're not paying for the whole system. There is a perceived value of panels on roofs that increase property values, especially when you go to sell it. So if the town can never recoup those taxes, I don't think it's equitable for the 1,900 ratepayers here currently in Bristol that are currently subsidizing your systems to never recoup any tax benefit for the town. So I'm rising in opposition of this warrant article. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Okay, we're hearing from the same people over and over again, so go ahead.
So, yeah, just let me address a couple of the issues. It shouldn't be us versus them here. Remember that this issue of solar cost is going to change dramatically. Cost of solar is coming down approximately 10% per year. So it's going to decline, and it's not an elitist thing where only wealthy people can have it. By the way, I don't have it. It's not like I'm arguing for my own case here. This is a policy decision about where we want to be as a community. This is the idea of, do we want to move to cap our costs associated with energy? Most of us have seen energy increase this year. Electricity went up 40%, our heating cost of oil went up tremendously. This will continue. Solar is the opportunity to stem that by putting in solar arrays so you have control over your own cost of energy. You generate your own energy. Imagine not having an electricity bill. Imagine not having an oil bill. Imagine being able to power your automobile through sunlight. That's what solar has as an opportunity. I'm not asking you to incent it. I'm asking you simply to not disincent it. And that's what we do today. We disincent it by incrementally taxing it.
Okay. Don?
Yeah, to speak to the amendment in general now, as a person who's actually planning a solar array, this would be a benefit to me. However, I am against the amendment. It's not a disincentive in my opinion. All it does is it extends out the payback period. The amount of taxes that you pay in, you just figure it as part of the cost of the whole system. And I stated before that when I put my selectman's hat on for the last time, I don't believe that it's a part of the town to incentivize this kind of thing. Thank you.
Bob?
Yes. I still can't believe, but I do believe it. Fossil fuel we don't need anymore. It's going to be awful nice when we see those jets go with batteries. But anyways, we don't need this. We need every bit of it. And you can do whatever you want about solar. But when that sun doesn't shine, you don't get any power. When the wind don't blow, you don't get any power. But our fossil fuel gives us power all the time, and you guys want to shut that down. What a smart bunch you are. Thank you.
Tom?
I think there have been good arguments on both sides of this. The argument that is most compelling to me is the idea that the assessments are not fair as they are now. It's a way that assessors came up with this formula to assess them. I think that if this article passes and we get rid of this exemption here, eventually the regular assessing process is going to pick up the added value that the solar systems give, and it'll be then taxed. So it's not really avoiding the tax. It's once there's enough people on solar systems that you start seeing there is added value to the property because they have it, then it's going to be assessed the way everything else is assessed. So I'm in favor of this amendment because of that argument. Not, there are all kinds of arguments on other sides, but that's the one that makes the most sense to me.
Okay. Is there a motion?
We're not talking to the amendment.
No,
right?
we're talking, we're
Right.
talking the original article as amended at this point.
Would you give me 30 seconds, Mr. Moderator?
30, I'll time you.
Time me. I encourage each of you to go look up the State of New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration 2020 Solar Energy Systems Exemption Report. One of the interesting things on this is the town, the number of exemptions granted, et cetera, et cetera. The last column here says taxes lost, which means that if these exceptions are granted, your town has lost X amount of dollars. Allenstown, 6,000, et cetera, et cetera. Go look it up, because it's interesting that it says you will lose taxes. That is the whole point, and the rest of you will pay for it. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, is there a motion to close debate?
Can we close that? I asked for that.
Randall Kelly, and seconded by Bo, to close debate. All those in favor of closing debate on Article 20 as amended signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. Okay, closed debate. And now we're voting on Article 20 as amended. And just to make it clear, what the amendment does is change the article to say it adopts the provisions of 72, 61, 64, inclusively to provide a property tax exemption of 50% of the assessed value of solar power and storage equipment intended primarily for use at the property immediate site. Everybody understand what you're voting on? Yep. Okay. So if you vote yes, you'll be voting to adopt Article 20 as amended. If you vote no, you'll be voting in opposition to that. All those in favor of Article 20 as amended signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay. The nays have it, and you've defeated Article 20. Which brings us to Article 20. Well, it should be 21.
21.
It's 22, but it's really 21.
Right. To transact any other business that you may come. Yeah, there was if you just remains, there's a couple of things that we just would like to address if you give us the time. Huh? You're good?
Well, no, go ahead.
No, I'm fine.
Oh, no.
I don't.
He was going to talk about Byron.
Who? Yeah, that's what I like you to do.
Ned and I are arguing about the same thing. As I said earlier, I love this town. Someone said, I thought we'd be out of here by 2. Someone said noon. I told them they were crazy. I thank you all for coming today and appreciate all your hard efforts today and throughout the year. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about the town report dedication this year, and I wanted to bring that up before we leave. Who am I to tell everyone in this room about Barbara and what she does and means to this town? I think everybody knows. She has about 100 adoptive children, of which I'm proudly 101, which I proudly include myself. Yes. Thank you. And really just, Barbara, for everything you do for this community. We just heartfelt thank you, and we appreciate you so much. And we love you.
You have no idea how much I love my town. I've lived here since 1949. And I worked in California and Washington. There's no place like Bristol, New Hampshire. Thank you.
And you
Thank
still look beautiful, too.
She does, yes. Also, I want to say thank you. We have 2 new board members coming on, which means we have 2 board members who are leaving us. And so I wanted to say thank you to both Don Milbrand and Anita Avery for the work that they've done on this board. I want to tell you what a pleasure it has been working with this board. As I like to say, we may not always agree, but we will always be agreeable. And it's been a distinct pleasure to work with both of you. You both have spent so much time and effort on behalf of all of the people of the town of Bristol, and thank you very much.
I just want to say one thing really quickly. And everybody thinks this is a horrible job, but the people of Bristol make this a great job. Thank you.
And I think, Rob, would you like to recognize one other citizen?
I apologize for taking up a little more time today, but I thought it was important that just to reach out as more as a member of the fire department than anything. We had a member of ours, Bob Patton, who passed away this past week. For those of you that aren't aware, Bob gave 60 years of service to the town on the fire department, as well as time he put in with his own church. And for those of you that don't know, he was the one responsible for the bell ringing every day on the hour. He would go up the clock tower every day and wind the clock for everyone. So, but I'd like to thank Bob. Bob's not here obviously, but thank him for what he's taught me and all the other members of the department over the past 60 years, and thank him for his dedication. So, thank you.
Nick,
There,
Nick, can I say one more thing? Be unusual. Please, the town of Bristol and you selectmen and all of you, will you change our seal back to the original one? This is the worst seal I ever seen on a book before, and they plaster it out every time you turn around, and it's sickening. Put our other seal back on here, will you please?
Okay. I just want to comment that, you know, I get around the state a little bit, and I hear stories about other towns and other town meetings and what takes place at meetings. And I got to say, this town is just exemplary in terms of the way we conduct our business here. People are so respectful and nice, and we work together. I think we work together really well. And I want to let you know that I certainly appreciate that. And thank you all for coming today, taking the time to do it. Thank you.
Please stay and get sworn in.
Yeah, and new officers, if you'd stay and get sworn in after the meeting, that would be great.
You need a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Motion by Sean,
Yeah.
second by.
Move to adjourn. A motion to adjourn. All those in favor? All those opposed?